My fellow Sazaiters, let me start by saying Happy New Year. What does 2025 have in store for us? Is this the year President Mnangagwa goes through with his 2030 project, which by the way will require 2 separate referendums? Will Nelson Chamisa go through with his plans to launch a new political vehicle, and what will this political vehicle look like? Is it a political Lamborghini? Is it a political Honda Fit? Or is it a political Aqua? President Mnangagwa is currently on annual leave, and he will spend that leave in Zimbabwe. He's not going outside the country. And apparently, the sick and frail Kembo Mohadi, who nowadays struggles to make coherent speeches, will be acting president, after which Chiwenga will then take over pending the return of President Mnangagwa. Now, does that mean that President Mnangagwa is afraid of General Chiwenga? Does he have a reason to be afraid of General Chiwenga? Is General Chiwenga still as powerful as he was before and during the 2017 coup? And who takes credit for that coup? Is it Mnangagwa, or is it General Chiwenga, or was it a collective effort? Well, fellow Sadzaitas, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, basnamalites, barkujgarais, never snamarites. Welcome to the special report. Once again, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. But what a year 2024 was. What a year. I mean, the Warriors qualified for AFCON, President Mnangagwa became SADC chairman, and Nelson Chamisa dumped the CCC. Tendai Biti took a sabbatical from politics. James Ontimba and 30 others were arrested and got released after spending 5 months in prison. And of course, who will forget Job Scala? He finally got released after spending 595 days in solitary confinement. After his release, Scala made headlines for changing his voice and talking like Nelson Mandela. After which, people started jokingly calling him Jobson Rolihlanya Scandela. You know, what about that bomb threat which caused President Mnangagwa to cancel his Victoria Falls trip? And of course, the ZANU-PF People's Conference, which resolved that President Mnangagwa must remain in office until 2030. Well, but today, my fellow Sazaitas, I want to give you an update on what's been happening in the CCC. Because honestly, I feel like that party, the CCC, must be renamed Citizens Coalition for Confusion, or simply Chipati Chevanuve Controversy, because what's happening in that party is no longer funny. Actually, it was never funny. It's been a year since Nelson Chamisa resigned from the CCC, yet that party is still in a leadership crisis. The acting president, Professor Rochman Ncube, is currently involved in a tug-of-war with the self-styled Secretary General Sengezo Chabangu over a whole range of issues stemming from the fact that Chabangu doesn't acknowledge Ncube as the legitimate acting president of the CCC. When Chamisa resigned a year ago, the CCC splintered into 3 factions. One faction led by James Ontimba, another by Chabangu, and the third one by Professor Rochman Ncube. The faction led by Chabangu is favored by the Speaker of Parliament and the regime. This is what enables Chabangu to make whatever decision he wants unilaterally. The faction led by James Ontimba is loyal to Nelson Chamisa, and they are eagerly waiting for him to form a new party so they can all join it. Timba is leading this faction as an administrator. The faction led by Walshman Ncube is made up of the MDC Old Guard, as elected under the MDC Alliance Congress in Gweru 2019. So in simple terms, The Ncube faction is basically the MDC alliance under a new name, with all its structures reinstated. When Chamisa resigned, the Ncube faction resolved to have its 3 vice presidents, Biti Kore and Ncube, rotate as acting presidents, pending the holding of a congress to elect Chamisa's replacement. But 1 year later, they still haven't gone to Congress. In a press conference which he convened to announce himself as the acting president of the CCC, Professor Washman Ncube acknowledged Chabangu as the recognized signatory of the CCC by the courts, parliament and all government institutions. He stated that he was going to engage Chabangu with a view to bringing normalcy to the party. He accepted and rubber-stamped all the decisions and changes made by Chabangu. He sought to bring him under his control, but it was too late to tame Chabangu. Chabangu had already tasted power and seen how sweet it is. He wasn't and isn't ready to relinquish that power. Professor Washman Ncube's engagement effort hit countless snags, and in fact, Chabangu now doesn't recognize Professor Washman Ncube as the legitimate acting president of the CCC. So, this has left the CCC with 3 groups claiming to be in charge. Now, government set aside 70 million ZiG for disbursement to political parties under the Political Parties Finance Act. So ZANU-PF, which has more MPs in parliament, was allocated about 44 million ZiG, which is about $3.4 million. The CCC was allocated about $1.5 million. Now, as you can imagine, $1.5 million for a party which has 3 groups fighting for leadership. Haziperemushi. It was later reported that the money had been given to the Ncube faction, which is rather strange because from the very start, this matter was between Chamisa and Chabangu. When Chamisa resigned, it became a Timba versus Chabangu matter because, as I stated earlier, Timba basically took over the faction loyal to Chamisa. So, before the courts, there are only 2 factions of the CCC. That is the Timba faction and the Chabangu faction. Professor Washman Ncube claims to be the acting president of the CCC based on the MDC Alliance leadership, which was elected at the 2019 Congress, which Congress was nullified by the courts and whose term of office expired. But even if that term of office hadn't expired, the Congress itself was nullified by the courts. The party which convened that Congress is not recognized by the courts. So Professor Washman Ncube is no longer standing before the courts. This is why Chamisa maintained that the CCC was a brand new party which had nothing to do with the MDC Alliance. He knew that if you base your leadership on the MDC Alliance Congress, you are doomed. You have no longer standing before the courts because they don't recognize the MDC Alliance as a party and let alone its Congress, which they already nullified. This is why reports that the Ncube faction received the money are very strange and confusing. Because Parliament doesn't recognize the Ncube faction, it recognizes Chabangu. The courts don't recognize the MDC Alliance on whose basis Ncube is acting president, yet the Minister of Justice gives Ncube the political party's funds. Come on, man, make it make sense. As we speak, Professor Washman Ncube is suing Chabangu for making unilateral decisions and imposing some changes to the structure of the CCC in Parliament. So what Chabangu did is, he removed Linet Karenyi Kore, Sisu Zwidzai and Edwin Mshoriwa from the Standing Rules and Orders Committee and replaced them with his appointees. Actually, these people that were removed by Chabangu from the Standing Rules Committee had been put there by Chabangu himself in the first place. So he was pretty much just removing his old appointees and replacing them with new appointees. When Ncube took over as acting president, he did not challenge a single appointment made by Chabangu. He recognized him and accepted everything he had done. So why is the professor now surprised that Chabangu is reshuffling, redeploying and firing people? Chabangu is just doing Chabangu things. The professor made his bed. He must lie on it. You do realize that It was the actions of Sengizo Chabangu that enabled Professor Washman Ncube to become acting president of the CCC, right? So instead of suing Chabangu, maybe the professor should actually be grateful. I mean, he tried to use the Gweru 2019 card on Chamisa, but he failed. Nelson Chamisa successfully divorced the CCC from the MDC alliance. He reconstituted and restructured the CCC to the point that Ncube and MDC old guard felt left out. That is what created the friction that ZANU-PF took advantage of. It was only after those Chabangu recalls that things started going south for Nelson Chamisa. It is the actions of Sengizo Chabangu that caused Nelson Chamisa to resign. It was only after Chamisa's resignation that Vana Washman Ncube watanga uti tucha trying to enjoy the spoils of Chabangu's loot. And that is why Sengizo Chabangu doesn't want to acknowledge Professor Washman Ncube as the legitimate acting president of the CCC. But whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor, because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.